Okay, so welcome back to the channel and another comparison video of two insulation testers. This one has been requested by Alan Sparks, another viewer of some of my other videos, and this is the Megger MIT420/2 against the Fluke 1587FC. So insulation and continuity tester from Megger. Costs around about £660 in the UK recommended retail price, against the insulation multimeter from Fluke, which costs around about £735. Now, I know full well that you will get some pretty good deals on both these instruments in the UK from reputable suppliers. I can get the Fluke down to £550 and the Megger down to £480 on eBay, which is obviously a little bit of pot luck at the time. But when I looked just recently, there are MIT420 Meggers on there for around about £400, and there were Fluke 1587s on there for around about £450. So pretty good deals to be had if you hunt around. This is what you get in the kits in front of you. Both of them are blow molded plastic cases. The Megger here on the left, you have a cutout in the top and the bottom for the instrument to sit in, which sits in there all nice and snug and doesn't move about. The leads are just stuck in here in these pockets at the back. You get red and black leads along with a remote probe as well for use in the instrument. And then this bit of green foam up here, this is tool foam. I actually added this to the case so that I could keep the probe tips and the crocodile clips all neat and tidy and know if they were missing or not from after I'd done a job. So if you buy this, you won't get a case with this bit of tool foam in. The clips will just be sitting at the bottom here. And finally, you get a little pocket up here for any paperwork you like, CD-ROM I've got in there, calibration cert or whatever. The Fluke 1587, this sits over here. Not so snug in the case, you can see it rattles around a bit. The leads again rattle around quite a lot in this side of the case, but you get the two leads, again black and red probes and Fluke crocodile clips. You also get the remote probe in this kit as well, along with a thermocouple for temperature measurements. And the case is quite spacious. This is fixed quite nicely for your iPad that the Fluke will connect to, and you can lay him in the bottom there, check all the leads on top, and you can carry the iPad around in the same case as the Fluke 1587 there. The case is made, I think it's also made for their maintenance kits, so you can get some of these with a current clamp and also a phase rotation meter as well. So it's kind of made out for those. Again, there is also a pocket for documentation, CD-ROMs, quick reference guide, whatever you want to put in there really. Okay, we'll chuck all this to one side and we'll take a closer look at things. Okay, a bit closer look at the leads. The leads from the Megger. The probes, tips and crocodile clips are a unique fixture. There's this little ridge over the probe body here that the actual tip clips onto, so a standard 4mm accessory will not clip over that and so won't work with this, so you're stuck with the items. You can see the Fluke doesn't go on at all, and so you're stuck with the accessories offered by Megger there really. In terms of their access to terminals, we've got 2.5 terminal here. You can see I can get in there and make contact, 4mm, 6mm, 35, no problems. This is probably one of the most refined probe tips I've seen on an insulation tester. Really is very, very sweet. No problems with access to it, and it maintains its GS38 compliance at all times. You can't even remove any of this insulation, so without a knife or something like that. So yeah, very, very nice lead and probe tip from Megger there. The crocodile clip, you can put him round M12 nut there, that's pretty much on its maximum. but if the thread's available, obviously it goes on the thread, no problem. M8, it can go on to there, no problems. In comparison to the crocodile clips from Fluke, just in around, the Fluke units are just that little bit bigger in terms of jaw capacity there, and they do go around that M12 nut just that fraction better. But other than that, they're both usable really for the job. The actual probe, this is the one from Fluke, and you can see it's got a removable GS38 cap on here that reveals a 4mm adapter there. So when you take the cap off, you can get into the terminals, no problems. With a cap on, I cannot get into 2.5 there. I can't get into the 4mm. I can get in and make contact with the 6mm, and obviously the 35mm. There is no problem. So yeah, I much prefer the probes tips from Megger, even though they are bespoke to that company. It's those two. The remote probes, again, they have removable GS38 caps, they both have that, and you can operate the instrument from, if you're going along a terminal rail, you can keep going along and pressing the button and going along and taking a number of tests in quick succession. That's the only thing that I would use that kind of for, probably more in a distribution board, going along. The actual probe from Megger, quite a bit bigger, fatter than the one from Fluke. And you do get a special accessory that goes over the top of this, so you can take the GS38 cap off and you get another probe tip very similar to their standard one here, much longer, that goes over this and gives you GS38 compliance and access into all these small terminals there. So that's that one. Chuck them out of the way. Get up close with the instruments. See how we look. Yeah, you can't see a thing, can you? Okay. Okay, so there's the two instruments. You can see this is the classic Megger case, completely rubber molded onto the hard plastic case, and it's just a box really. Got quite a nice ergonomics to it, shaped at the bottom half of the body. The battery compartment here is held in with a single screw, and the tilt bell comes off with everything when you take that one away. And underneath here there's a safety fuse and a separate compartment that you can get to, and you've got the loop up there for a hanging strap, so you can hang the instrument from a panel door or something, but no probe holders on this whatsoever. And there's the front display there, the only two input jacks at the top here, that takes the remote probe, and then the standard 4mm there, and that gives you the test points for all the test functions. Cat 4 600 volt input protection, and then you have the standard rotary function switch, center off position, auxiliary functions around the bottom, then your voltage and insulation test functions along the top there, and then sub functions off of the menu buttons up there underneath the screen. Forward, in contrast, the Fluke has a removable rubber boot. That gives you the probe holders in the top here for storing the probes or for using them, or for holding them during use if you so desire. Access to the battery compartment is a single penny slot screw there, but you have to prise the instrument out of the rubber boot to get access to it, and it's quite a tough thing to get out. In terms of the front of the meter here, 4 input jacks in the traditional position on a multimeter, I guess, volts, and then a common current, and then a common, and then the insulation test is from these 2 jacks here, the positive current and a special jack here just purely for insulation testing. That's the one I always mess up with. Every other insulation test I have, or the vast majority, insulation test could be a special jack, but it's always to the common. Fluke have totally fooled me by taking it to the positive current terminal. Throws me every single time. Rotary switch to get to the main functions, and then sub-functions are off of these menu buttons underneath the screen here. First position on both the instruments is voltage. The Megger defaults to AC DC mode. The Fluke doesn't have an AC DC mode. It goes straight to AC mode, and you also have a low pass filter available in this mode as well. Next function switch is volts DC. To get volts DC on the Megger, you just page through. That's actually AC volts there. That's actually DC millivolts there. The DC millivolts and voltage is all on one function. On the Megger, to get DC millivolts on the Fluke, you have a separate function off the rotary switch there. And in that position, you also have access to the temperature function just there, which you don't have any temperature measurement capability on the Megger instrument here. In terms of voltage, the Megger will read 0.1 millivolts up to 600 volts, and the Fluke will measure 0.1 millivolts up to 1000 volts, and this is also a Cat4 instrument as well. What I also did miss back on the AC function, you can also go to Hertz, and you get the Hertz upon the main display of the screen, and that will measure from 0.01 Hertz up to 99.9 kilohertz, so reasonable range there, typical of a multimeter, I guess. For the Megger here, the Hertz is actually displayed on this top screen up here as a secondary function. You cannot get the Hertz displayed as a main function on this instrument, and it's quite a narrow bandwidth on this, 15 Hertz to 400 Hertz, so you've got like a permanent low pass filter built into the Megger instrument here. Whereas with the Fluke you can turn it on and off. Moving further around onto the ohms and capacitance on the Fluke here, you go around. The ohms and capacitance are offered two separate functions on the Megger instrument. First one is ohms. That's a fully automatic function that measures from 10 milliohms up to 1 mega ohms. Also has the ability to have 200 milliamp test current, and you also have a lead zero function as well. The 200 milliamp function will only go up to 4 ohms at 200 milliamps. Beyond that, the current drops down automatically as the resistance increases. For the Fluke over here, for the ohms scale, this will read 0.1 ohm up to 50 mega ohms. So again, kind of a multimeter style function, much wider reading capability than the Megger has. However, this doesn't have a 200 milliamp test current. It's a standard resistance range, 1 milliamp test current, something like that. So this instrument in that respect is not compatible with the continuity test function required under the UK wiring regs, which the Megger does meet with its 200 milliamp test current. Capacitance on this one, 1 nanofarad all the way up to 9.9 millifarads, so again another good range capability. In contrast, the Megger, flick it round to microfarads, and you are actually 0.1 nanofarad up to 10 microfarad, and I do find that quite limiting for the electrical test aspects. Motor start capacitors quite frequently go above 10 microfarads, so it's a little bit limiting in that respect, whereas the Fluke can handle that higher capacitance level. If we flip him round, we've got diode and continuity test function on the instrument. You don't have diode test capability on the Megger, but you do have a continuity function built into the automatic resistance function here. And the next one round on The Fluke is milliamps, AC DC milliamps up to 400 milliamps. Actual fact it is 0.01 milliamp up to 400 milliamps. However, the Megger doesn't have any current reading capability whatsoever. And then final position on the function switch on the Fluke here is the insulation test and another low battery. Damn, this thing's eating batteries. So on the Megger, the insulation test function is on the upper part of the rotary switch. Test voltage is manually selected 50, 100, 250, 500, 1 kV, and then a variable test voltage at the end, anywhere from 10 volts up to 1000 volts that you set on the settings function down here. For the 1587FC, the test voltage is selected electronically from the range up here, and it won't do it because the battery's gone flat. I don't know if I'll get away with... No, it's well gone on me, hasn't it? Okay, so it is actually, you just have to trust me, it is exactly the same test voltages, 50, 100, 250, 500, 1 kV on this instrument as well. You, however, don't get the variable voltage, but you do get a smoothing function. Having said that, I don't really use the smoothing function an awful lot. So in terms of insulation test capabilities, the Megger here, 200 gigaohms at 1000 volts, drops down to 100 gigaohms at 500 volts. In contrast, the Fluke here, 2.2 gigaohms at 1000 volts and 550 megaohms at 500 volts test voltage. In terms of additional functions for the 1587, you get pi and dar up here, and you also get pi and dar on the Megger. You also get a standard time function as well that you can set off the settings menu down here. The Megger has built-in memory. To save a reading, you just hit the save button and it saves it to the next allotted data number. The 1587 doesn't have any built-in memory, but it does have Bluetooth connection to an iPad, and you can record readings, you can record the pi and the dar curve, you can voltage log, you can current log, and you can save all those readings and you can put them into a report. And if you pay for Fluke Connect, you can store everything on the cloud and put it back and email reports to clients and the like, should you require that. For the Megger, there is no Bluetooth connection, there is no connection to a USB or anything. You literally have to swing it back round to the settings and then page through the readings and write them down or type them into an Excel spreadsheet or whatever, and then you create your reports in that manner. Both the instruments have backlights. It's a really nice backlight here on the Megger. It's not going to work on the 1587 because I've got a flat battery again, but I'll put a picture up of what it looks like. In contrast to the Megger, it's quite poor backlight on this one. It's adequate for its needs in the dark, but there is room for improvement with that aspect of the instrument, really. And that's pretty much the functionality of the instruments. In terms of accuracy, for overall accuracy, again I'll put the table up. In actual fact, the accuracy score goes to the Megger at 1.194% against 2.716% for the 1587FC there. Where the 1587 loses most of the points is on the winding resistance test on my little simulator. The ohms reading on this, very poor, only 1 decimal place resolution on it, no 200 milliamp test currents, and the tests against the phase resistance readings on the wind simulator, it comes out quite bad. Whereas the Megger here, an extra decimal point resolution on this coupled with a 200 milliamp test current, and you get much more accurate readings, and that's where the biggest difference is between the two instruments. The Fluke also suffers when you test the output stability of the insulation test function in comparison to the Megger here. Where the Fluke does outperform the Megger is the general voltage readings and the resistance readings. They are more accurate, and also when you test a transducer, that milliamp function on this for transducer testing is excellent. And it's on a par with specialist instruments that I use for testing transducer outputs, really. Very nice. The Megger here can do that, using a load resistor and measuring the voltage. It's got a good millivolt function there. You can see 0.1 millivolts it can measure down, so the 100 ohm load resistor, you can get a reasonable test of the transducer output there, but in comparison you choose the Fluke for measuring transducer outputs every single time. Yeah, and that's pretty much it for the comparison of those two instruments. In terms of which one I would go for, as with a lot of these things, because they're such different instruments, it depends exactly what you want from your testing. Generally speaking, I go for the Megger. I'm much more into insulation resistance testing on motors and the ability to actually record a reading and then trend that reading over a period of time. Since most of my testing is done at 500 volts, I can usually get good DAR and good pi readings from that test at that voltage and record them for future trending. With the Fluke, with it having such a low insulation measurement capability on the 500 volt test, only 550 mega ohms, quite often this just goes over range, and especially if you're trying to do polarization index tests, quite often you won't get a ratio at all out of the instrument. With the DAR function, even sometimes you'll fail to get a ratio reading. Even if you take the instrument up to 1000 volts test voltage, 2.2 gigaohms just isn't enough for modern day installations, and the IEE and IEC test specs allow you to actually go up to 5 gigaohms at a 1 minute reading, which obviously the Megger can handle, but the Fluke just can't do that. So that's why, for me personally, I always go for the Megger. On top of that, with its 200 milliamp continuity test function that I need for UK wiring regs, which again the Fluke doesn't have, I would again go with the Megger unit. I guess if you're more into the control and instrumentation side of things and you just want an insulation tester to give a sort of go no go test for what you're working on, because you much rather have the voltage and resistance and current capabilities of the instrument, I guess that's more where the Fluke would be aimed at. Okay, so that's it for this video. Thanks for watching. Hope you found it useful, and I'll see you again in the next video.